Vanuatu is an island nation located in the South Pacific Ocean. Comprising of 83 separate islands, the archipelago is east of northern Australia, with New Caledonia, the Solomon Islands and Fiji as its nearest geographical neighbors. Vanuatu's location means it has significant risk to several natural hazards. Seismic activity from the Pacific Ring of Fire cause frequent earthquakes, with potential for major quake at any time. With much of its population in low-lying coastal areas, tsunamis from near, medium and far range also pose a very real danger. Vanuatu is also home to several active volcanoes, including Mount Yasur on the island of Tanna, which has been erupting nearly continuously for over 800 years. In addition to earthquake, landslides, tsunamis and volcanoes, Vanuatu also experiences an annual cyclone season, beginning in November and continuing through until the end of April. In a typical season, 2 to 3 cyclones are likely to affect the Vanuatu region, with January and February being the most likely times for their occurrence. Wet season has usually been from November to April, but climate change is changing the annual rainfall pattern, causing rainy seasons to be wetter and dry seasons to be drier, posing challenges of coping with both flood and drought. As of 2013, Vanuatu's estimated population was 264,000, with approximately 3/4 of this population living in rural areas. Vanuatu is a young developing nation. 35 to 40% of its population is below the age of 15, and many families rely on subsistence agriculture. Its exposure to risk of natural hazards, climate change, and high reliance on imported goods have meant that it has remained on the United Nations list of least developed countries. Across Vanuatu's 6 provinces, there are approximately 1,100 learning facilities with more than 76,000 students enrolled from early childhood through secondary schools. In order to protect lives of students and staff, and to ensure education continuity, and to protect important investments made within the education sector, comprehensive approach to school safety is recommended. This comprehensive school safety framework helps to work towards achieving climate-smart disaster risk reduction in the education sector by working on 3 areas: safe school facilities, risk reduction education, and school disaster management. School disaster management is part of regular school management. It simply means that we take the time to plan for 2 of children's most important rights: the right to safety and survival and the right to education continuity. School disaster management is an activity that everyone can be involved in: administrators, staff, students, parents, and community members. School disaster management is made up of 5 simple planning and implementation steps, which schools are encouraged to explore and update annually. These steps are knowing our dangers, reducing our risks, preparing to respond, planning for education continuity, and monitoring, sharing, and reaching out. The rest of this video focuses on the standard operating procedures for various disasters and emergencies, which are a major part of the theme preparing to respond. Standard operating procedures are intended to help staff and students understand and practice various behaviors for safety when faced with natural and man-made hazards. There are 6 standard operating procedures that cover almost any situation we may face. The emergency decision tree contains all necessary standard operating procedures or SOPs to help us deal with any situation. These standard operating procedures are lockdown, building evacuation, shelter in place, safe assembly, evacuation to safe place, and safe family reunification. Depending on the situation, it may be necessary to use more than one standard operating procedure to maintain the safety of your class. Remember that some people may be in more danger than others if their needs are not considered. Deciding what to do for any hazard starts with asking, what hazard are we facing? The emergency decision tree lists possible answers at the top. Your answer will give you your starting point for moving through the decision tree. The first question is to recognize what situation you are facing. Hazards may have rapid or slow onset and may happen with or without warning. Some hazards like earthquake and fire require you to take action immediately, and it is up to everyone to know what to do in advance. As the situation changes, you may move from one standard operating procedure to another. You will need to reassess, and when the danger has passed, classes can resume or students may be reunified with their parents or approved guardians. Once you know the hazard you are facing, the three questions in the decision tree are: is the building safe? Is it safe inside the school? And then reassess and ask whether it is safe in the local community. Let's look at the three most likely scenarios for schools in Vanuatu. In the first example, fire would require building evacuation before everyone is assembled safely outside on the school grounds, and then students may be reunified with parents or approved guardians. The second situation is in case of threat of violence to students within the school grounds. The third shows what to do in case the school building itself is the safest place to shelter from a hazard. No matter what situation we may face, there are some activities schools and families need to complete to make sure they are properly prepared for all situations. All parents should provide schools with lists of persons who have permission to pick up students in case of emergencies or disasters. This is the primary means of assuring safe family reunification, as schools will only permit children to live with people authorized by their parents. Each school can also take some simple measures to protect equipment and supplies from wind, water, and earthquake shaking, which will minimize the impact of hazards and help schools start without delay. Each school should prepare an emergency evacuation box for a class or for a school depending on the number of students. This box should contain some essential items that will help you remain safe and comfortable if you have to leave the school on short notice or remain evacuated for a long period of time. Consider including items such as first aid kit, blankets, a bush knife, tarpaulins, solar or battery torches, and a radio. It is important for each school, or for larger school each class, to have an emergency clipboard with a copy of the emergency decision tree for reference, blank copies of class status report form, list of student guardians and their contact details, and emergency contact for local authorities. With these initial preparations complete, teachers need to teach the standard operating procedures to their students, and then schools should begin practicing their drills on a regular basis to prepare for fires, earthquakes, tsunami, hurricanes, and floods. When conducting drills, it is important for participants to behave as if it were real. When the next big earthquake or cyclone comes, it certainly won't be funny. So try to respond as if your life depended on it, because in the future it just might. In case of a fire or an evacuation alarm, staff and students need to exit the classroom in calm and orderly fashion, following these rules. Don't talk, don't push, don't run, and don't turn back. If it's possible, exit with a buddy in twos. Anyone needing assistance can be helped by those nearest. Be sure to bring your emergency evacuation box and clipboard with you. In case of a fire, close the door behind you as you leave. Ideally, evacuate 2 classes with 1 teacher in front of the whole group, checking the evacuation route is clear, and 1 teacher at the back, making sure everyone is out. As you exit, move directly away from the building as it may be unsafe. Make your way to the pre-decided assembly area and sit in sitting area assigned to your class group. Teachers should take class roll and check for injuries. If anyone is missing or injured, report this to the on-site incident commander so that they can help keep track of staff and students' whereabouts. If anyone is injured, send them with a buddy to the first aid area at the side of the assembly area. Students should be engaged in quiet activities, distribute food and water, and provide shelter as needed. Remind students not to use mobile phones so that lines can be kept clear for emergency communications. And also about the safe family reunification procedure that is there for their safety. In case of drills and small events when there has been no real threat, a reverse evacuation may be practiced to return to class prior to all clear instruction and resumption of classes. However, anytime it may really not be safe for students to return home in the normal way, the safe family reunification procedure will be used. This will ensure that students will live only with parents or approved guardians. In some circumstances such as tsunamis, floods, and volcanic eruptions, assembly on the school grounds may not be safe. If you face any risks that could make the school grounds unsafe, then you should identify and prepare an alternate safe place to evacuate to and the route to get there ahead of time. Evacuation to this site may be automatic as in the case of a tsunami risk or may be triggered later on the decision of the on-site incident commander and the assessment team. Let's look at earthquake and tsunami safety next. As soon as an earthquake is felt, teachers should announce, "Earthquake, drop, cover, and hold on."
Drop, cover, and hold.
Everyone should drop to the ground on their knees, cover the head and neck underneath a desk or another strong piece of furniture, and hold on to your cover to stay protected until the shaking stops. If you are outdoors, move away from trees, buildings, or other dangers, and drop, cover, and hold on in an open space. Remember that a strong or long earthquake may be the only natural warning you will have before a tsunami. Using a steady pace count allows the length of the earthquake shaking as a group. Stay where you are and continue counting until the shaking stops. If the earthquake lasts longer than 40 seconds or is so strong that it would be difficult to remain standing, evacuate immediately to your selected safe haven, uphill and away from the coast along your previously identified safe evacuation route. When the shaking has stopped, evacuate the building immediately, taking the emergency evacuation box and clipboard. Again, remembering the don't talk, don't push, don't run, and don't go back rules. If your school or community has an evacuation alarm, it should be sounding to alert everyone of the risk. Evacuate with one adult in the lead and one at the back to make sure that everyone is together. Once the safe haven is reached, teachers should take the class roll, complete the class status report form, and maintain safe assembly until an official all clear is received or students are safely reunited with their families. The on-site incident commander will check via SMS or radio to see if there has or has not been a tsunami warning and or an all-clear message is received.
We have received an all-clear message. There is no tsunami. We shall now move back to our classroom.
If an official all-clear is received and there is no tsunami threat, the on-site incident commander should order a reverse evacuation, where staff and students follow the same path back to school and resume classes. Otherwise, the safe family reunification procedure are followed at the safe haven. Not all threats that schools will face will be natural hazards. It may be that persons come into the school grounds with possible intention of causing deliberate harm or injury to staff and students. In this case of threat or violence, students should know to make their way to the nearest classroom and remain there away from the threat. Close and lock doors, Turn tables on their sides, facing outside windows and hallways, and crouch behind them, making yourself as small as possible. Staff should alert the police and monitor the situation, transferring control to the police once they arrive. The lockdown position should be maintained until police or other authorities instruct that it is safe either to resume classes or release students as per the Safe Family Reunification Standard Operating Procedure. Finally, there may be situations where the classroom is the safest place to remain for an extended period of time. This may be due to severe and sudden flooding or storms, the release of hazardous material or explosions, or any other reasons that may mean the local village or community is not safe enough to allow students to return to. In this situation, students and staff should take shelter indoors within the school buildings. The incident commander or head of school will let everyone know that the shelter-in-place standard operating procedure has been activated. Ensure that all students return to their classrooms and that playgrounds and common spaces are cleared. You'll need emergency supplies, and as usual, you'll need to take the roll and fill in the class status report form. Use a radio or TV if appropriate to keep updated. Remind students not to use their mobile phones and occupy class with quiet activities. As you may not know how long you are required to stay sheltered, it is important to create a timetable for learning, recreational activities, eating and sleeping. It's good to have a bucket and plastic bags and make up a privacy screen for sanitation needs. Reassure students and remind them of the Safe Family Reunification procedure that will be used when it is safe to do so. School drills should be practiced for expected hazards. Every school should conduct at least 3 building evacuation drills per year and be able to do them perfectly. One full simulation drill should be based on scenarios that you may face. Schools in earthquake or flood-prone areas should also practice for these hazards. Try them with different scenarios at different times of the day. The purpose of a drill is to prepare for the unexpected. Remember that drills should always be treated as the real thing. As you do this each year with new students and staff, you will get better and better and think of new ways to make yourself safer. We hope you will also plan to reach out to your community, nearby schools and kindies to make sure they too are safe.